The North Korean leader was recently seen crying in front of his people, a moment that revealed something unexpected: his desperation. Standing before his citizens, he showed an emotional side, pleading for help. This rare and shocking display occurred a few months ago and left many people stunned. The image of an authoritarian leader who is visibly vulnerable and begging for assistance is, at the very least, a curious sight. But what is really going on behind the scenes in Kim Jong-un's regime? How did a nation that once placed such heavy emphasis on military and nuclear strength end up in this situation? Could North Korea be on the verge of collapse? Today, we aim to delve into the darker aspects of North Korea and explore how some of Kim Jong-un's choices might be driving the country toward disaster. To fully understand the current situation, we need to examine North Korea's economy. While the country often portrays itself as a military powerhouse, the truth is much more grim. The nation is slowly crumbling from within. This deterioration started in 1991 with the collapse of the Soviet Union, a devastating blow to North Korea, since Soviets were its main economic partner. To make matters worse, North Korea had already been facing severe international sanctions, mainly due to its nuclear program. This compounded the nation's economic struggles. Today, the country's GDP per capita stands at a mere $1,200 annually, not monthly. This figure ranks among the lowest in the world. As a result, the majority of North Koreans live in extreme poverty, grappling with hunger and widespread malnutrition. The country's healthcare system is almost non-existent, with hospitals lacking basic medicines and facing poor hygiene conditions. Moreover, only about 70% of families have access to adequate housing. Yet, despite these dire conditions, Kim Jong-un continues to spend billions on his nuclear program. But why? This is most likely because Kim believes that his nuclear arsenal is his only safeguard against potential invasions by the US, South Korea, or any other world power. But the high cost of these weapons is contributing to the collapse of the nation. Now we come to the heart of Kim Jong-un's tears. His population is rapidly declining. The first factor is the increasing number of North Koreans fleeing the country. Despite its reputation as one of the most closed-off nations, with strict and paranoid border surveillance, more and more people are taking the risk of escaping. The number of defectors has been rising every year. In fact, the number of defectors arriving in South Korea tripled in 2023 compared to previous years. Additionally, North Korea faces the issue of soldiers stationed in Russia, but we will discuss that further later. However, the most critical factor behind the country's shrinking population is its declining birth rate. North Korea, despite its poverty, faces a paradoxical situation. Its fertility rate is closer to that of wealthy nations like Japan and South Korea than to other poor countries. With a fertility rate of just 1.7 children per woman, well below the 2.1 replacement level required for a stable population, North Korea's population is aging rapidly. The low birth rate means there aren't enough younger people to replace the older generations. This demographic shift is catastrophic for North Korea, a nation that relies heavily on a large, young workforce to support its labor-intensive economy and maintain one of the largest militaries in the world in proportion to its population. In response to the population decline, the North Korean government has implemented drastic measures. It has banned abortions and the use of contraceptives, with doctors performing illegal abortions facing up to 10 years in prison. Kim Jong-un is also attempting to incentivize larger families by offering small rewards such as extra food rations or preferred housing for families with 3 or more children. However, these incentives are largely ineffective. For example, the subsidy for pregnant women amounts to just 3,000 won, around $3, not even enough to buy 2 kilograms of rice. This raises a key question: how can anyone afford to raise children in a country where food is scarce, hot water is a luxury, and women must work relentlessly to provide for their families? In the face of economic hardship, many women have become the primary providers for their families, often replacing husbands who are forced to work in unpaid government jobs. In this environment, having more children becomes an even greater burden, leading many women to opt out of marriage and motherhood. This has caused a cultural shift, as younger women are delaying marriage and rejecting the idea of having children. For them, growing up in a nation ravaged by poverty and hunger has made it clear that having children would be an unbearable hardship. Despite this, the government accuses these women of adopting Western values and being influenced by capitalist ideologies. Meanwhile, North Korea is facing a growing issue with smuggling. The illegal trade of USB drives and DVDs containing South Korean films and music has become a significant problem for Kim Jong-un. These media sources expose North Koreans to a reality far different from the one portrayed by the state. People who have spent their lives hearing propaganda about North Korea being the best country in the world now realize, through these smuggled media, how much better life is outside their borders. In response, the government has cracked down severely on anyone caught with or distributing this type of media. However, no matter how much the regime tries to control the flow of information, dissatisfaction is on the rise, not only among ordinary citizens but also within the elite circles of the regime. With food shortages affecting even the ruling class, cracks in the government are becoming more visible. In an effort to address the crisis, Kim Jong-un has turned to an old ally, Russia. Recently, he made the controversial decision to send troops and weapons to support Vladimir Putin in the war against Ukraine, hoping to receive technology, fuel, and political backing in return. This move has been seen globally as a dangerous escalation of the conflict, with fears that it could lead to a wider war. However, this decision may ultimately backfire. By sending troops to Russia, Kim risks exposing his military to outside information. North Korean soldiers participating in the war in Ukraine reportedly gained unrestricted internet access for the first time and were seen consuming large amounts of Western media. Some have even become addicted to pornography. The danger is that these soldiers could return home and share what they have seen, further undermining Kim's propaganda machine. There's another critical issue at play: defection. Kim Jong-un is deeply concerned about the potential for his soldiers to defect while in Ukraine. In addition to the exposure to foreign influences, there's the issue of Russia's treatment of North Korean soldiers. Russia has been using them as expendable resources, sending them to the front lines without proper training or support. To prevent desertions, Russia has promised these soldiers attractive pay, but the reality is that most of them will likely never see any of that money. So, is North Korea really on the brink of collapse? According to an article by the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, there are several reasons to believe so. First, as we've discussed, the economy is in ruins, with food and energy shortages becoming more severe. Much of the nation's budget is being spent on military weapons, leaving little for the people. On top of that, the government's grip on the population is weakening. Younger generations are becoming less influenced by the regime's propaganda and are no longer as fearful as before. To make matters worse, North Korea's decision to strengthen ties with Russia has left the country more isolated than ever. Will Russia continue to support North Korea, or will it only do so as long as it benefits them? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this issue in the comments. Finally, there's the issue of Kim Jong-un's daughter, who is rumored to be his potential successor. Many people doubt she'll be able to maintain stability in the country in the future. If conditions are dire now, it's hard to imagine how things will play out in the coming years. We hope you found this mini documentary insightful. Don't forget to like and share the video. It helps us keep producing content.